This is a news-oriented broadcast, and all information is educational in nature, is not intended to be legal, securities, tax, or insurance advice. Securities are not offered or sold on the show. Please consult with the appropriate professional before acting on information heard during the broadcast.
Investment advisory services offered through Adjemi Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisory and fiduciary to its clients. Adjemi Financial Strategies, Inc., Adjemi Wealth Advisors, LLC, and the Retirement Income Store, LLC, are associated entities.
Americans are worried they won't have enough saved for retirement now more than ever.
Retirement is going to cost for many folks over $1 million.
We got here because we made a lot of promises that we cannot afford.
There are things I'm hearing about now, fees and taxes, that I never heard of before.
This is shaping up to be a disaster.
Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, powered by the Retirement Income Store and brought to you by Adjemi Financial Strategies in Guilford, Connecticut and Denver, Colorado. Over the next hour, be prepared to hear ideas, concepts, and strategies that may challenge the way you were taught to think about saving and investing for retirement. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to it. Now, here's this week's Financial Strategies with your hosts, Andrew Adjemi in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemi in Colorado.
So I was at my physical therapist, and her name's Kayla. She recently bought the practice, and so she's been doing that for a little while. She's younger than most wanting to retire. She's in her mid-30s, but she knows I work with people who are in retirement, and I help people retire. So she said, Daniel, how much money do I need to retire? I said, well, Kayla, it depends on your situation. It's different for everybody, and you're younger than most, so you probably need more money. She said, well, just give me a number. And I said, well, how much do you need to live on? Do you think you could live on $70,000 a year? And she said, yeah, I could live on $70,000 a year. So I said, Kayla, you could retire with $2 million. And she said, no, that's not nearly enough. I don't own a house. I'm a business owner, so I don't have a lot of other assets. I don't think that's enough money with inflation, with buying a house. And I said, well, how do you think about retirement? And to her, that meant having $2 million sitting in the bank and drawing from her principal. And because she's in her mid-30s, over 40, 50 years, she'd run out of money. She wasn't thinking about compounding interest. I'm Daniel Adjemi.
And I'm Andrew Adjemi, and we want to welcome you to today's show of Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, because people don't know what people don't know. We're answering the question today, how much money do I need to retire? And as you can tell from Daniel's illustration at the beginning there, that it's a question that's asked by a lot of people, and the answer is different for everyone because of where they're coming from and their perspective that they're looking at things. Daniel, do you want to expound upon that situation with Kayla? And she wasn't thinking about the compounding of interest and the money growing over time. Talk to us a little bit more about how and what her most precious commodity is.
So our most precious commodity is our time. The one thing we cannot buy any more of, we cannot get any more of, we cannot trade anything for any more of, at least right now, is time, right? So when you're younger, your time equals future earning potential.
Right.
So Kayla was in this business, and she can grow that business over time and accumulate wealth. For retirees, it's different because now your most precious commodity is still time, but you don't want to have to increase your future earning potential. You want your money to increase your future earning or buying potential.
And buying time for you, right? In retirement.
Enjoying the time, right? So you're not worried about inflation. You're not worried about taxation. You're not worried about running out of money. So you want to be going to the beach, or you want to be going and hanging out with your grandkids, or you want to be able to go the vacations to the places that you've always dreamt about going. And that's where your money needs to be future earning, not you developing skills to keep up with as fast as the world is changing.
Right.
So in Kayla's case, she has to watch out for two things. She has to have an income that she can live off of if she retired. So that's where we came up with the $70,000. She could live off of that. So with $2 million, if she generated about 5% interest, that would be $100,000 a year. She takes and lives off, buys a house, whatever, with $70,000 of income, dividends and interest. You take the other $30,000 a year that she's not spending, and you let that compound. And if it's 5% all the way across the board, that doesn't seem like very much money. She's saving 30 of her income, and she's spending 70. Well, if you let that compound over a 40-year period, she ends up with about $3.8 million on top of the $2 million that she's been living off of for that 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So she has this inflation hedge. She has her income coming in. Now, the good news for most retirees out there is you don't need that much money because you're in a different phase of life and you have other assets, probably, maybe rental income, Social Security, things like this. So you don't even necessarily need that much money, but it's all about the strategies that you use and how you combine these things to make sure you have the income that you need in retirement.
Right, exactly, Daniel. You know, you're talking about the compound interest, and in this illustration, talking about it growing at 5% a year. Well, it's one thing if you're getting interest and dividends, like we talked about in a previous show, and when we talked about compound interest, but when people put money in the stock market, it's not compound interest. It works differently than that. And I'm reminded of an illustration of a couple that came to see one of my friends who were about 65 years old. They had a financial advisor and planner that helped them and told them that, ran some illustrations and whatnot, told them that they had enough money to live to be, 90, 91, 92 years old and possibly later than that. And he was putting it in at growing it at the stock market at 5% a year, and that kind of thing. But, the thing that he did not take into account for those folks is, number one, they're only 65 years old. So they could live easily 30, 35 years more because of how long people are living today. But more importantly than that is the ups and downs of the stock market. That if a 65-year-old is putting their money into the stock market, they can't depend upon 5%. A 35-year-old can think along 5% per year kind of guidelines. But a 65-year-old needs to be thinking more along the lines, if they have their money in the stock market, of 1 to 2% on average per year because of the fluctuations of the market and when they need the money, and dollar loss averaging, which is reverse dollar cost averaging that we've spoken about on other shows. So all these things come into play. And I'm so excited to be able to answer this question today that so many times we get asked, how much money do I need to retire? Can I retire? I've talked to a couple people just this week who have called in from the radio show and been able to help give them a quick scenario of what it looks like in their life. And I'm excited about today's program. For those that may have just joined us, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, and we're giving away a companion piece to today's show, a white paper and commission report on the 7 risks of retirement. The 7 risks of retirement. We think this is a good paper. It's only about 2 or 3 pages long. That's easy to read and will help you be able to understand some of those things that if you're close or in retirement that you need to be aware of. And by close, we're talking about people who are within 10 years of retirement or in retirement, and things that they need to be aware of to be able to counteract in their life to make sure that they don't make a fatal mistake. If you call us at 800-725-7616, we'll be glad to get you that report. 7 risks to your retirement. Please call now. There are operators standing by for that. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, because people don't know what people don't know. Daniel, when we're talking about this aspect and answering the question, how much money do I need to retire? One of the things that's a function of is how much money you have, how much money you're going to be putting away, how much time you have to put that away. In the case of a 35-year-old, time is on their side. In the case of a 55-year-old, a 60-year-old, a 65 or 70-year-old, they don't have time. Time is not on their side as far as accumulating that money, building that money. Time is behind them more than it is in front of them. And so it's very important that our audience be able to be aware of the time, redeem the time, and make sure that they use it appropriately to build their most precious commodity and to build their financial assets in a way that they'll be able to make sure that they won't run out of money. You know, as we're talking about this, there's two things that are involved. One is people working for money. The other is money working for money.
That's exactly right. In our scenario with Kayla, she was able to retire, have her money work for her to have that $70,000 come in. And that's for spending. That's to do the things she wants. The other 30 of that 100,000 she was making off of dividends and interest was accumulating and compounding. Now, we didn't talk about what you were talking about earlier of markets go up and down. So in her case, if she's investing $30,000 a year of income, down markets equal buying opportunities because that $30,000 she's investing every year compounds faster when the markets are down because then when they come back up, she has more money.
Right.
But because she's investing for income in down markets, she's still getting the same amount of income. She's investing by contract as opposed to investing for hope or with hope. When you retire and you're not investing for income, you're investing with the hope. You're hoping the market's going to continue to go up and up and up, even though we're in a recession with the NASDAQ hitting all-time highs. So when you take money out in down markets, it's, you mentioned it, dollar loss averaging. You're selling more shares to get the same amount of money. When you're accumulating wealth, down markets mean buying opportunity because you're taking money either from your pocket or from your paycheck and you're investing that into markets, you're buying lower, and then when it comes back, you have even more money.
Nice.
But when you're retired and you need money to go see the grandkids, or you need money to buy a new car, or you need money to, you know, help a friend out who's not in as good a situation as you.
Right.
If you take money out when markets are down or just going sideways, it can hurt your future earning potential.
And kind of hurt the time, you know, all those years that you put into building your net worth, your assets, you're basically wasting time from the past and you're cannibalizing your assets, or you can be. And, you know, it's interesting that you talk about, you know, the distribution stage versus the accumulation stage, or growth versus income. And, you know, I just want to make it clear to our listening audience, we're not necessarily saying that you have to do one or the other. The key that we're saying is you need to have a perfectly allocated portfolio. And in the example Daniel just gave, it's a perfectly allocated portfolio because the income is being generated to keep the person living in the retirement the way that they want to live. And then there's extra income that can be invested when buying opportunities present themselves to get growth out of it. So the perfect allocation is a key to being able to retire. Well, we're answering the question today of how much do I need to be able to retire? And it's not just about how much money do you need, but it's the strategies that you use with that money that counts. I see that it's time for us to take a break. So I'd like to offer you the white paper that we have available today to our listening audience called 7 Risks to Your Retirement. And we have that available. If you call 800-725-7616, we'd be glad to get you a copy. Please give us 2 forms of contacting you when you call so that we can make sure that we get that to you properly. And we're also, to the next 5 callers, giving away the book Return on Principle by David Scranton that gives some information about retirement, how much you need for retirement, how to invest for retirement, and what you can be thinking about and the principles on which to build your retirement plans. So we have that book, like I said, to the first 5 callers that call in at 800-725-7616. And you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, because people don't know what people don't know. We'll be back after this.
This is Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, powered by the Retirement Income Store.
The world has changed. Our economy has changed, and many things are going virtual. Meetings, school, shopping, even weddings. But your retirement is not virtual. It's real, with real food, healthcare, and other monthly bills that don't accept virtual money, like mutual funds and stock certificates. To keep you informed and up to date, Adjemi Financial Strategies has put together a series of webinar events. Here's the schedule for our upcoming webinar events. August 11th, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, it's Sink or Swim. How will your retirement handle another wave? August 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern, Savvy Social Security Planning. And then on August 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern, RMDs in the New World. To register for our free webinar events, go to our website, Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com, or call 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. Make plans now to join us for our next webinar event.
Have you missed any of today's program? No problem. You can hear all of our shows online anytime, 24/7 at Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com. Time now for more of Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemi in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemi in Colorado. Powered by the Retirement Income Store.
Recently on CNBC, Teresa Ghilarducci was interviewed. Teresa is the head of the Department of Economics for the New School in New York City. And she was asked, why are so many older Americans being thrown out of work during the pandemic? And she said, it has to do with the jobs they were in. Education and healthcare that wasn't involved with COVID care, like dentist offices, optometrist offices, home health care. These are jobs that were all lost in the last couple of months and were disproportionately filled by older workers and older women, by the way. Women have been hit harder than men in the COVID recession, and older women especially. I'm Andrew Adjemi.
And I'm Daniel Adjemi. And you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about how much money do I need to retire? Dad, what does that have to do with retirement?
Well, this has to do with the pain that people have experienced in the past and people are experiencing now and people will experience. There's pain in retirement planning when people are trying to figure out what's happening. See, what's happening with these people, especially these older women who are being hit. And let me speak to our audience. If you're a woman, especially that's 55 years old or older, the situation can be difficult, especially if you've lost your job. It could be very difficult to find a new job at this point, at which point you're going to have to depend upon what assets you have, what you can get from unemployment, Social Security, whatever things that come into play to be able to make sure that you have what you need for retirement. Well, that can be problematic if you have been one of those people that have been hired, fired, and prematurely retired. And that's what's happening to these folks is they're prematurely retired. They're not ready for retirement, but to be able to find a new job is going to be difficult. And so they're faced with, they have whatever they've saved at this point in time. And now they have to make that be able to last the rest of their life. There's a lot of pain going on out there in this recession, even though the stock market is doing some crazy things and hitting new highs, like you said earlier, Daniel, with the NASDAQ hitting new highs, but there still is a recession going on. And one thing that I want you and our listening audience to understand is that the stock market and our economy are two different things. They're not identical. Yes, they affect each other, but just because the stock market is going up doesn't mean that our economy is good. Right now, our economy is not good. It's kind of like, in my opinion, our economy has been shot with Novocaine. People are not feeling the pain of what COVID has done yet, but they will one day. Just like when you go to the dentist, you get your mouth shot with Novocaine, get a cavity filled. You don't feel a whole lot of pain, but you know later on when that Novocaine wears off, you're going to feel pain. And that's what I think is going to happen. There's a lot of people getting hurt because of things like unemployment, not only being able to receive unemployment, but then also being able to get another $600 a week on top of that, creating a lot of income. But I think a lot of people are not preparing themselves for when that goes away. that they're going to be in bad straits, because it's like Novocaine. There's problems going on, but they don't feel the problems right now. And that's why we're trying to talk today about how much money do you need to retire? Can you retire? We want to talk about how people are getting hurt so that people can be prepared for this.
Yeah, I think that our world is changing even quicker than people realize. So basically what COVID has done is it's been a time machine. We're like in 2023 or 2024 right now, as far as progress has gone with using things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, things like that. And our world is changing exponentially. And it was already happening, but COVID pushed that on. So the people who are being hurt from this may have had a little bit more time to reinvent themselves. But COVID sped that up. And so we talked about Kayla, and we talked about these things. We talked about younger people and older people, and time being our most precious commodity. Well, do you want to have to reinvent yourself for the new world because you ran out of money? If you're in retirement, do you want to have to do that? Some people are being forced to reinvent themselves because they were pushed into an early retirement. Hopefully, they can talk to somebody who understands how to invest for income, and maybe they can actually retire and live off of those assets, off of that income,
right,
and not have to reinvent themselves. Because young people, it's exciting to increase your future earning potential, to learn. The world is changing fast and there's lots of opportunities. But do you want to reinvent yourself if you're 65 or if you're 70 because you ran out of money and now you have to go back to work?
Or even 55 years old, right? Who wants to reinvent themselves at 55? It's crazy.
Yeah. There's this new world being built behind the scenes, and we obviously can't get into it today. But with the blockchain and with these things, it will be good for people. It will be good for the people. The world is getting better. It may not seem like that right now. But if you don't want to be a part of that, some people do, right? Warren Buffett is still working. Does he have to work? No. I think he's in his 90s and he's still working. But not everyone has that goal that they want to work all the way until they go away, right?
Right, exactly. And the pain that people face, a lot of people today don't remember the pain that happened in 2008 to people that were retiring at that point. The reason why they don't, sure, they had pain, but they don't know the pain that those who either had just retired and had to go back to work, or those people that were planning to retire and had to work longer because of what happened to their assets. Because most of the people today who we're talking to, or maybe have just retired or been retired a few years, they were working at that point. And when they were working, sure, they had pain, but it's not the same pain as those people who were retiring or getting ready to retire or had just retired. Because to have to go back to work or find a job, to be able to make ends meet and to have the retirement that you want or dig into your assets was just egregious. Daniel, at that point in time, you probably remember how we were just getting phone call after phone call, people wanting to come in to see us because of the pain that they were experiencing. These were not our clients. These were people who had been investing for accumulation and growth and that sort of thing, but they were in the distribution stage of their life, and they were calling us, recognizing that we could help them with the distribution stage and how to protect their money. And we were able to help a lot of people at that time. But I felt really bad for those people because a lot of those people came in September of 2008 and the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, when they had already lost a lot of their assets. And we were able to help them figure it out and make things better for them. But if those that had listened to me when I was talking this way in 2005, 2006, 2007 were far better off at that point. And those are the people I'm happy for. And that's why today we're talking to you in our listening audience about how much do I need to retire? We're trying to answer that question. And we want you to be prepared for retirement no matter what happens. We want you to have a strategic, on-purpose strategy that's going to help you be able to retire and stay retired. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, and we have a report that we would like to give you called The 7 Risks to Your Retirement. We know that this will be an asset to your thinking ahead toward retirement. It's only about 2-3 pages long, and you'll enjoy that. We can get that out to you if you call 800-725-7616. There's operators standing by. That's 800-725-7616. And we'd be glad to get that to you. Give us 2 ways of being able to contact you so we can make sure that we can get that to you. And we'd love to be able to get that out. If you have any questions about today's show or any retirement questions, please call us as well. And we'd be glad to answer that question off the air. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, because people don't know what people don't know. We're answering the question today: how much money do I need to retire? Call 800-725-7616 if you have a question for us, and we'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, powered by the Retirement Income Store.
After a certain age, you shouldn't be overexposed to stock market risk. Yet, you might still be trying to squeeze every last drop out of today's market. And although fixed income investment can offer less risk than stocks, it doesn't mean you have to sacrifice return. In fact, recently, some fixed income investments have actually outperformed stocks. But yet, you're still waiting to act.
To learn more about the Retirement Income Store, call your local Retirement Income Specialist.
Adjemi Financial Strategies at 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. Or visit us online at Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income. Have you missed any of today's program? No problem. You can hear all of our shows online anytime, 24/7 at Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com. Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemi in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemi in Colorado, powered by the Retirement Income Store.
Recently, we've had people call in from our listening audience to ask this question: how much do I need to retire, or can I retire? Well, in the example of Martha and Ed, they're both making $150,000 a year right now. And both of them got prematurely retired because of COVID-19. They're 62 years old. And so we did a top-down analysis of if they had enough money to live on in retirement. Well, in their situation, we subtracted $40,000 that they're not going to be saving anymore in their 401ks and that kind of thing. So that brought us down to $110,000 that they needed to live on. And then Social Security is about another $10,000 that they're not going to be paying. So that brought them down to about $100,000. That means $100,000 that they're living on currently. Their kids are grown. That's not an issue here, but they like to RV. They like to drive their Class A motorhome around the country, stopping at various state parks and national parks and seeing all the different things. And there's still a great part of the country that they have not yet been to on any kind of regular basis. They want to do a lot of traveling when they retire. And so they're figuring that they're going to be spending about $20,000 a year more than what they're currently making to do this RV traveling that they love to do. And they just love to enjoy it and go out there and park their RV at the lake or at the ocean and wake up in the morning and walk out the door and see the water and the sun, depending what part of the country they're in, rise over the water or sit over the water, whatever the case may be. And they just really enjoy that and enjoy being with each other and meeting new people along the way. And so they need another $20,000 to do that. So that means they need $120,000 a year to live on in retirement. Well, Social Security, if they collected that right now, would give them about $40,000. Their pensions will give them about $60,000, but they need another $20,000 a year if they're going to do their RVing. Well, between the two of them, they have $500,000 that they've saved into their 401ks. And if that money was allocated properly, they'd be able to get $20,000, $25,000 a year out of those 401ks that will allow them to continue and to retire now at age 62, even though that they've been prematurely retired and fired, they'll still be able to enjoy their RVing. However, if they don't have it perfectly allocated, they're going to have to give up their RVing. And the question is, should something happen with the market and we have another episode of the COVID-19 come upon us and the stock market drop again, or other things happen like history says is on the horizon for us, well, they're going to have to give up other things. Their retirement is not going to be so comfortable. I'm Andrew Adjemi.
And I'm Daniel Adjemi, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today, we're talking about how much money do I need to retire? Andrew, that's a pretty good story. And I think what people don't realize is there's a difference between net wealth, net assets, your assets or your money that you've accumulated, and income. And income is the most important thing in retirement because you can't spend assets. You can sell assets and spend the money you get from the assets, but you can't spend assets. If you have a $300,000 house, that's an asset. As long as you don't have a mortgage on it, that adds to your overall net worth. But unless you're getting income off of that house, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, it's not helping you in retirement.
Exactly. Income is important. You need income that you can count on. In our example of Martha and Ed, I said if they had their allocations aligned properly and perfect allocation, they'd be able to get that $25,000 a year that they could depend upon in retirement so that they could enjoy their RVing trips. But what I find so many times is that people misunderstand, people are misguided, and they don't have their monies perfectly allocated. They think they're very well allocated, but they're just not. You know, to you and our listening audience, if you were to take a teeter-totter and underneath the seat on the left-hand side, you put a 10. Underneath the seat on the right-hand side, you put a 0. That teeter-totter represents all investments. The 0 is low risk. The 10 is high risk. We take that teeter-totter and separate it into 3 categories. The left category would be aggressive. The middle category would be moderate. The right category would be conservative. And then we can subdivide those same categories into those same sections. So bear with me here as I go through this. So on the left-hand side, we have aggressive, and then we have the aggressive category of aggressive, moderate category of aggressive, and conservative category of aggressive, and so forth all the way through the moderate, aggressive, moderate, conservative, moderate, into conservative section with aggressive, conservative, moderate, conservative, conservative, conservative. And when we're talking about allocations and perfectly allocated is diversifying across the board there through all those categories. But one of the things that I find over and over again, this is probably one of the greatest mistakes that retirees make with their money, is that they keep most of their money in the aggressive category. And the egregious thing is that they often think that they have most of their money in conservative, when in actuality, it's in the conservative end of aggressive, where they can lose principal. Most of the retirees or pre-retirees that I talk to, their definition of conservative is not losing principal. But these folks have been duped into thinking they're not going to lose principal because their financial advisor or stockbroker said that they were in conservative. But conservative is only a word. Conservative is a word, and the question is, what does it mean? And what does it mean to the person saying it? So we need to make sure that we understand the definitions of the people we're speaking to. And that makes a huge difference in having income that you can count on. That makes a huge difference in how much money that you need in order to retire.
Well, that's fascinating. And I think our listeners are going to be excited about that, because what I hear you saying is it doesn't matter so much about how much net worth, how much assets you have accumulated, as much as it depends upon how much income you can generate from the assets that you do have.
Exactly.
And the perfectly allocated part really depends upon you, on your situation, because someone with $10 million has to allocate that portfolio completely different than the person that has, let's say, $300,000.
Right.
And investing with hope is not a bad thing for some people, but the purpose of your money, if you want to retire and stay retired and you don't have $10 million or $20 million,
right,
then you need to make sure that you're getting the right amount of income to support your lifestyle, to support the hobbies, the RV trip, seeing the grandkids, and then look at, especially when markets are as high as they are right now, investing with the hope mentality after you get the purpose, the income portion put together.
Yes, exactly. You want dependable income that you can count on. But so many times people think in terms of how much money do I need? Well, it's not how much money you need. That's the question. The question is really how much income do you need and where are you going to get that income from? People think withdrawal from principal is income. It's not. It's cannibalizing your principal. I mean, many baby boomers have been taught to take from interest, don't take from principal. But what they end up doing with their investments is taking from the principal. And that can be detrimental and disastrous to their retirements. Well, I want to offer those in our listening audience today the white paper. Are your allocations right? What are the proper allocations for you as you plan for retirement? Are your allocations right? We have this white paper available to you by calling 800-725-7616, and we'd be glad to get that to you. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, and today we're talking about how much money do I need to retire? What that's based upon is how much income do you need, as I said a few moments ago. In the example that I started this segment with, I talked about how much money Martha and Ed were making before they got prematurely retired by their companies recently. And I subtracted out what they've been saving every year because they're not going to save in retirement. And I subtracted out the Social Security tax that they're paying now because they're not going to pay that in retirement. They're going to pay federal tax and state tax if their state has one, but they're not going to be paying Social Security tax to find out how much money they're living on currently. I added in the extra money that they're going to be needing for doing those things they want to do in retirement. And then I added up the income that they'll be receiving, dependable income from Social Security, from their pensions, and then from their other assets. Daniel, you brought up a great point when you're talking about net worth versus income. And when I think of that real estate issue, I think of a piece of property that is just a wooded piece of property that's not creating anything as far as income goes. It's just an asset. It's part of somebody's financial net worth. It's on their balance sheet. It makes them worth more financially speaking, but it's not doing anything for them. Whereas if that piece of property had a house on it that they were renting out, like you said, and giving them a dependable income of $2,000 a month, let's say, that's a nice chunk of change that will help them to be able to retire, that they can count on their retirement to help them to live. But tell our listening audience how they can get income that's dependable from their assets and from their money so that they can retire.
Well, there's an entire universe of non-stock market income generating alternatives that people don't know about. Why don't people know about it? Because it's not taught. Because if you think about it, the market has done well. We've been the 80s, the 90s into today. The market has gone up, 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 up. And investment advisors, stockbrokers, and money managers have not been taught how to set up an investment portfolio to generate income over long periods of time. We have the disease of ease, which is where you take your mouse and you click a couple of mutual funds and you purchase those for somebody's account. That all works well and good when things are positive and things are going up. But when you have the worst economic output, which we just saw in economic data that came in,
right,
since the Great Depression, you need to look and change that strategies. You need to look at these things that can protect your money, can protect your purchasing power, and can protect your retirement by living off of income. It would be like, imagine this. You go in for a job interview and they tell you, well, we can pay you two ways. One is you can take a paycheck. We'll give you $50,000 a year, or we won't pay you anything. And as long as over time, over the next 10 to 20 years, the company does good, we'll give you maybe a couple $1 million. That might sound good, but that's a big maybe, right?
Right.
And how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to buy a car? How are you going to pay for food, for gas, to get to work, go on trips, take care of yourself, if maybe you're going to get some money in the future?
Right.
And that's the difference between the hope investing and the income investing. You would never take a job if you needed money to live off of that didn't pay you anything.
Right.
A hope that sometime in the future you would be paid, you would get compensated. So why would you do the same thing with your assets if you need income to live off of?
Wow. That's powerful. Why would you put your assets during retirement in a hope situation where you hope that you're going to get the money that you need when you can get set up in a dependable income through interest and dividends that will be there that you can count on, just like a paycheck? Well, I see that it's time for us to take a break here today. And you've been listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, because people don't know what people don't know. We're answering the question today, how much money do I need to retire on? We're giving away the white paper. Are your allocations right? Call us at 800-725-7616 to be able to get your copy of that. It's only about 2 or 3 pages long. Nice, easy read that will give you concepts and ideas for how to plan for the future and how to have that perfect allocation. We'll be right back after this.
You're locked on to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, powered by the Retirement Income Store.
The world has changed. Our economy has changed, and many things are going virtual. Meetings, school, shopping, even weddings. But your retirement is not virtual. It's real, with real food, healthcare, and other monthly bills that don't accept virtual money, like mutual funds and stock certificates. To keep you informed and up to date, Adjemi Financial Strategies has put together a series of webinar events. Here's the schedule for our upcoming webinar events. August 11th, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, it's Sink or Swim. How will your retirement handle another wave? August 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern, Savvy Social Security Planning. And then on August 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern, RMDs in the New World. To register for our free webinar events, go to our website, Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com, or call 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. Make plans now to join us for our next webinar event.
Have you missed any of today's program? No problem. You can hear all of our shows online anytime, 24/7 at Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com.
For baby boomers, here's something to think about. Will you have enough income during your retirement? Are you absolutely sure? Do you understand the difference between growth and income? How about bonds and bond funds? Are you 100% ready for RMDs? Do you have an estate plan? If you've said no to any of these, we can help. Right now, for the first 5 callers, we'll send you a free, custom-designed, animated video retirement kit to help you plan for the retirement you've worked so long and so hard for. These custom video kits are loaded with cutting-edge retirement technology, custom designed to your specific areas of need. There's nothing else like them. So call right now to receive your very own custom-designed animated video retirement kit.
Call Adjemi Financial Strategies at 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. Or visit us online at Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com. Time now for more of Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemi in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemi in Colorado. Powered by the Retirement Income Store.
My wife and I have 8 children together. Daniel is number 2 of the 8. So with all of my children, for the most part, I coached them in various sports when they were young. And Daniel, I coached with basketball, and we had a lot of fun with basketball and playing that. And those that don't know me, I'm 6'4", so I played a little bit of basketball, not a lot, but a little bit in my lifetime. And as I coached a team, it would be a situation that when we were up a lot of points, we would want to hold our lead and run the clock out to be able to maintain that lead and to be able to win the game. And we didn't want to do anything crazy, not taking any kind of 3-pointers or any crazy stuff. We just want to run the clock out, play conservative ball, and maybe I'd even put the second string in and that sort of thing. But the key was to be able to win the game and not have one of the kids get hurt, not something happen to where the other team could steal the ball away because of our being aggressive with it, but to maintain control of the ball and maintain the points on the team so that we could win the game of basketball. I'm Andrew Adjemi.
I'm Daniel Adjemi, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about how much money do I need to retire? That brings back some serious memories. I haven't thought about basketball in a long time, but those are definitely some fun times, some good winning and some good learning, some good experiences. I remember you making up that most improved player trophy given out and stuff like that too, which I guess if you're not winning all the games, it's good to get a trophy for at least getting better at what you do, right?
Right, exactly.
But what does that have to do with people's retirements?
Well, many times I will look at somebody's finances, doing a financial MRI on their finances or pre-financial physical, and in there, I find a little bit of cancer. What I find is that they've done very well. They've accumulated, financially speaking, enough points to win the game of life financially. They have enough money to retire. And how much money they need, well, it's dependent upon each person, but we go through and we calculate what they need to live on based upon what they have and what their assets are to be able to come up with how much they need to live on and when they can retire. Well, I find that they have enough money to retire, but what I find is that they don't have it allocated properly. It's kind of like you're up by 20 points. You got 2 minutes left in the game, and the coach typically pulls out the first string, goes to the second string, no 3-pointers, no aggressive stuff because he wants to win the game. And in the same way, these people I'm talking to, I try to encourage them to win the game of life, financially speaking, by going to a position of being able to have a consistent, dependable income that they can base their retirement on rather than just a hope standpoint where they're taking the 3-pointers, they're being aggressive, and they may actually lose the game or lose out on some of those memories that they want to make in life because they can't go on that trip to Alaska that they wanted to take the kids and the grandkids on, or the trip to Disney World because the market is down and they can't afford to do that. When they're working from a hope-based, a purely growth-based strategy, purely stock market-based strategy, that can cause them to run out of money, which would be losing the game of life, financially speaking.
How much money do I need to retire is all about a bottom-up analysis. How much income do I need to have the lifestyle that I want to have to protect my future buying power and creating income off of the assets that you already have to protect your financial future, to protect your retirement. So it's all about how much money you need to live off of and building a plan to get you that dependable income.
Exactly. And then what are you going to do with that money? If you're 59 and a half or older, you may not realize this, but you have options available to you with your 401k, your 403b, your 457 that you may not know are available to you to be able to help put you in a better situation of having dependable income, of being able to take advantage of what's happening in the stock market and the bond market, and being able to have dependable income to set yourself up for retirement so that you can have the money that you need to retire and stay retired.
It's not so important how much assets that you have, but how much income you can get off of those assets.
That's right, Daniel. If you want your retirement to be stress-free, invest for the I and not the G. Invest for income and not for growth. This is Andrew Adjemi, along with my son Daniel Adjemi, and you've been listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi. We're out of time for today. We appreciate you joining us again this week. We hope you join us again next week. And in the meantime, we wish you a stress-free retirement.
That's all the time we have for today. To speak with Andrew or Daniel off the air, call 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. And for more information about Adjemi Financial Strategies, visit us online at adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com. We will be back again next week at this same time for another Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi.